Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar. I'm Anne Livingston and I'm moderating today's webinar alongside our guest speaker, the internationally renowned Dr. Thomas Linner. We're excited to present today's webinar, which will focus on intelligent living, assistive technology for accessibility and for age inclusiveness. Our webinar today is being hosted by Global Community Resourcing on our online platform, the Community Care Smart Assistive Technology Collaborative. We've been fortunate to work with a number of international, local and national partners, bringing together a number of researchers across the globe to share and create innovative ideas in community care settings. Our webinars are created on feedback provided by our members and requests that we receive through the collaborative. We aim to connect a diverse number of individuals and perspectives in research and development, as well as creation and deployment of assistive technology, particularly in our passion area of community care service delivery. Just a reminder that if you haven't formally registered at the collaborative site, it's accessible to all and free to register. We pride ourselves in having a range of resources, news articles and collaboration opportunities. So it's your chance to register, and the site details are before you. Just by way of disclaiming, please note that neither Global Community Resourcing or the Department of Communities, Child Safety and Disability Services are actually promoting any particular product, research entity or organisation. Our webinars serve to inform viewers of examples of good things happening in deployment and development. And today's webinar is really highlighting, showcasing global research. It's my pleasure today then to also take any of your questions. I've a range of questions already presented in advance, and there'll be an opportunity at the end of the webinar to ask these of Dr. Linner. In today's webinar, our guest speaker, Dr. Thomas Linner, will speak on intelligent living solutions for older people. Dr. Linner's presentation will explore some of the innovative solutions, but also the challenges of ageing societies. By way of introduction, Dr. Linner is currently the Chair of Building Realisation and Robotics and a Senior Lecturer and Research Director at the Technical University of Munich. He's also worked in the International Standards Organisation as convener of the Technical Committee on Ageing Societies. And I've been really pleased, Thomas, to have your expertise and your leadership in the Dementia Inclusive Working Group for TC314. Thomas is also currently the Vice President of the International Association for Automation and Robotics in Construction. It's our great pleasure to have you on board today, Dr. Linner. Over to you.
Annie, thank you. Thank you to you and your team for inviting me to this presentation or lecture, however you call it. It's for me, of course, also a great chance to, create awareness for the ideas, for the technologies, for the techniques that we develop, mostly also together with industry partners. As we all know, aging as a worldwide challenge. So we hope that we can contribute by bringing some of our solutions out there into use. And of course, this webinar is I see a good chance to create more awareness what we can do with the technology in that regard. So we focus in this talk today on intelligent living. And I want to show how we are using and how we can use assistive technology to create more accessibility and age inclusiveness in the context of an aging society. As mentioned previously by Anne, I'm currently working at the Technical University of Munich. I'm at present also guest associate professor at the Keio University in Japan. And as mentioned, diverse activities within DEAN and ISO. And I'm also involved in a series of innovation and startup formations. So in the context of an aging society, we can support people in their everyday life in different contexts and settings. For example, we can support people impaired in their everyday activities. We can support people that are in the process of aging. We can also support people that require physical and cognitive activation and rehabilitation, for example, after an accident, back into their community, back into their home environments. And of course, last but not least, participation in work, mobility, and the city as a larger system. So all these are important aspects of life where we look at the possibility to use human-centered technology to support. You see here some examples from my projects, from the projects that I'm involved in, that I have been involved in. So as you can see on the left, here we have developed an assistive interior room kit. Yeah, so we are, but we try to package the technology into a nice design. So basically, the technology is seamlessly integrated, and you will later see in my presentation what technology we have integrated here. We're also focusing, you see that on the top right, on how we can support people, for example, in community centers, in daycare centers, in the context of socializing and social activation. On the bottom left, you see that we are also working on technology that we can use to train the physical and the cognitive capacities of older persons. And on the right side, you see an approach where we developed a workspace, a workstation solution for older people in the manufacturing context. So I will, in my presentation today, touch base on 4 aspects. First of all, I want to lay out foundational principles of an expanded architectural language. So we see these technologies as an extension of buildings, as an extension of the tools and techniques that we use to create built environment. I will focus then on 2 project examples to highlight our approach. I will also touch base very briefly on methods, models, and tools we use in this context to develop those systems. And finally, I will outline how we are at present using approaches, intelligent living approaches and technology in the context of the COVID-19 situation. So there have been in the past a couple of approaches that basically indicated that we can create habitat as a machine, as a system that supports people in different contexts. So this goes back. Some of you might know Le Corbusier, for example, Bauhaus, Fritz Haller, Yoshika Uchida in the Next 21 in Japan. So this all were approaches that tried to conceive of buildings as kind of supportive machines. Of course, machines are sometimes, or in the past, were, how to say, not so flexible and intelligent systems. So on the right side, I want to show that today we can, of course, we take up that notion. We see built environment from a functional perspective, see what functions we can add that we can support people in regard to functional and cognitive aspects. Today, however, in contrast to the past, we have a couple of new technologies and techniques that we can use, so we can make these machines a really personalized assistant system. Yeah, we can use techniques from the field of modular programming, 3D printing. We have adaptive robotics. We can use sensors. We can use data and artificial intelligence, and all these technologies and techniques give us the possibility to make this machine or technology-based environments now personalized and adaptive. And I think this is quite a game changer. And this is what we want to utilize in our work. So when we talk about intelligent living technology, so this means we can use intelligent living technology in a couple of different contexts and use cases. Yeah, so we can use it to address some medical, neurological, gerontological conditions, for example. We can use it to address functional aspects like the ADLs, IADLs, balance, walking speed, cognitive functions. We can use it to influence life phases, life trajectories. We can, of course, also use the technology to address a social and societal impact aspects. Yeah, social cohesion, workforce participation, and so on. And of course, there are dependencies. Of course, we address medical, neurological aspects. This can help us to address or improve functional aspects. If we improve functional aspects in larger populations, of course, we have a social and societal impact. So there are, of course, dependencies. The good thing is that we have for all of these areas, so to say, metrics available. And of course, these metrics help us a lot when we develop systems, when we develop solutions. So how can we measure the impact or how can we set up the requirements so we address those aspects correctly? When we talk about assistive technology in the context of the built environment, we create a lot of complexity. We have a lot of possibilities to combine elements, different building interior configurations, furniture, sensors, ambient sensors, variable sensors, mechanical devices, robotic devices. There's a very, very large possibility for combinatorics. And we have to be aware that the combination of these elements in certain living contexts, in many cases, are new combinations. Yeah, we don't know what this combination, what impact it will make. Yeah, and of course, this is a part of our research that we try to also test the combinations of specific technologies in specific environment for specific purposes, for specific people, and try to generate knowledge about the combinatorics and the morphologies this creates. Yeah. For example, we are working with morphological fields and we're using our trials and tests that we are doing to kind of uncover and outline the relations and the impacts of specific combinations. We take in our work a scientific and risk-based approach. So we have to be aware that when we, so to say, insert and deploy technology for health and well-being purposes in the environment of people, that we create systems which are very, very close to the human being, which have an impact, severe impact in many cases on the health of human beings. And therefore, we actually treat the development of these technologies and the surrounding environments as a quasi development of a medical product. Yeah, of course, this has quite a lot of implications on how we are structuring the development process, how we are proceeding in terms of the studies, preclinical trials, clinical trials in the context of the development that we're doing. We're also looking, of course, at the implications of the, for example, the European Medical Device Regulation, different national and international standards that guide on the clinical investigation of medical devices. And so that even we start in many cases out as the development of an intelligent living technology, and we don't know at the beginning, will this be a medical technology or not? We conduct the development from early stages on as if we develop a medical product. I will now zoom in on two project examples to highlight our approach. So I'm involved, or we have in our work been involved in the setting up of more than 10 different, so to say, living labs. Yeah, we consider these living labs as kind of satellites to our central research and development lab that we have. In this central research and development lab, we start many of our developments before we move it in one of our satellite labs. The satellite labs are built up jointly with some of the lead users that we're working with. So first, I want to focus briefly on our so-called LISA project. The LISA project is I would say, traditional or classical ambient assisted living project. So in this project, we developed technologies that are integrated into a furniture kit. And the idea of this furniture kit is that you can deploy it in different living areas and spaces in the environment of homes, of care homes, of assisted living facilities to support that the older people can live more independently. The systems support them in the carrying out of ADLs and the IADLs. So we treated the different living environment, living areas in a living space as so-called life centers, and then we concentrated the insertion of technology on different modules and furniture elements in that life centers. We have in the area around Bolzano in Italy, as part of the project, we have equipped several flats of an assisted living facility with the systems and modules and have carried out long-term studies on the use and the improvement of the quality of life of the persons living there. You see here some examples. So in very early stages of the development, so this is still in our laboratory environment, we have worked with one-to-one mock-ups of the technologies and the furniture elements and have invited a group of 10 users basically in our team to co-create the functions of the furniture modules together with our development team. We have experimented in the context of this project with different technologies, for example, radar sensors, fall detection systems. We have also integrated several robot systems to communicate with the furniture. And we've also been working with dynamical navigation systems. So the robots can navigate using the furniture as fixed points in the dynamic home environment. We've also worked on data integration, on data visualization aspects. And you can see here an example that finally all the sensors, all the devices have been seamlessly integrated into the environment, into the furniture, so to create an unobtrusive assistive environment. The second project I want to highlight is our REACH project. REACH was a large European funded Horizon 20 project. We have in this project collaborated with companies like Philips and Archo. In this project, a bit in contrast also to the previous project that you have seen in this REACH project, we have focused on proactive prevention and rehabilitation through physical, cognitive, and social activation. So if you want, we have developed technologies and techniques that at best you, so to say, age in a way, or that support that at best you age in a way that you don't need the technologies and approaches that I've shown you for the in context of the previous project. Yeah, of course. In theory, this is our aim with the REACH project. So in REACH, as you can see here, we have developed a series of activation devices where you can do different physical and cognitive trainings. These trainings or these systems are integrated with the different building and living environments. And they basically should support and train people in early stages of functional and cognitive loss, so to say, to counteract and counterbalance this. So what we did in this project technically is that we used a series of ambient and wearable sensors in combination with artificial intelligence and techniques from the field of behavior change, so that we basically can modulate modulate the trainings provided in different environments and over different devices, so that we can create an optimal, so to say, kind of training progress. And that, for example, if people have difficulties with balance and walking, we can detect it very early. We can very early train them in this regard and increase as early as possible their functional capacities, as such also their participation in social and other activities, and naturally increase their participation and functional capacities as such. We have tested this over 4 years in 4 major settings distributed over Europe, and we have conducted round about 30 trials in this context. So also in the REACH, as in the REACH project, as mentioned previously, I've basically treated the development of these technologies and techniques as if we develop medical products. We have worked a lot also with, for example, meta studies and systematic reviews to actually see if you know, we are with the approaches on the right track. We have then also used also a series of controlled trials to compare also our approaches to different other technologies, to things like, for example, normal conventional physical therapy and so on. and looked, so to say, at different aspects like the user acceptance, like the medical and geriatric outcomes. And we have third and last but not least also tried to identify the so-called cofactors. So for example, if we increase or want to increase the physical activity and the quality of life, besides physical activation, for example, what further factors are important in the context of the use of the devices, like, for example, nutritional aspects. So we have also carried out a couple of studies to highlight the relations regarding the cofactors that determine the different outcomes that we can achieve with our technologies. So the methods, models, and tools, due to the limitation of time here, I will focus on two aspects that, so to say, are important to us. The first one is, of course, the focus on human factors and on the acceptability. I think we all know throughout the last 10, 15, 20 years, we have developed a lot of technologies in the context of active assisted living, intelligent living, and so on. But we don't see so many things really on the market, really out there to help people. And of course, this is linked strongly to the acceptability, strongly to human factors. So we need to look into that. One important aspect, and I think the second project, the REACH project that I've shown you, highlights that quite good, quite nicely. So assistive technology, I mean, how much assistance actually are we providing? Yeah, so I think we need a kind of an assist as needed approach. Yeah, so the technology, we need to see that technology doesn't provide too much support. It provides the right amount of support in the right context at the right time. Yeah, this of course requires that the technology is adaptive, that the technology incorporates some sort of sensing, artificial intelligence, whatever, that it can adapt to the user and provide the right amount of assistance so that we can actually support still the, how to say, furthering of own capacity, of own physical and cognitive capacity, which we would take away, which we would hinder if we're providing too much assistance. But this is, of course, also touch bases on ethical aspects. There's also touch bases, of course, on what are the actual needs. And unfortunately, or yeah, however you can say that, the needs of older people are changing. Yeah, this is not static. And we, in the past, I think we saw this technology often as a static development, supporting in the context of static requirements. This is not the case. We need to take a more adaptive and dynamic approach, and I think then we can much better address human factor and acceptability aspects. Second thing is, and thanks to Anne for briefly introducing that. Yes, we are quite enthusiastic of looking at support and assistance with and without technology from a community perspective, from a city perspective. Yeah. So human beings, usually we are not living only at home or in the facility or wherever. We're actually constantly moving through some sort of neighborhood environment and city community. And so on. And when we develop technology, we must consider that technology, basically, you need to take it with you. Yeah, it needs to follow you maybe through different, you're at home, you're moving out, you go shopping, you go to the doctor and so on. So technology need to be able to follow you through different settings and also life phases. Yeah, this is where we think that technology really can unfold its potential. But of course, this comes along with a lot of challenges. For example, if you obtain data. When you obtain data with sensors, for example, in a clinical environment, it's not so easy that you basically share it or take it out and use it also in the non-clinical environment, just as an example. So this continuity of the technology and the data through the different levels and areas of a community is quite a challenge and quite something we are recently looking into that, and therefore we are happy that I can support or have been supporting in the last years at ISO to convene the group on dementia inclusive communities. Yeah, it's I think a quite good thing that we are now in the final, the FDIS stage of a standard that with a group of around 50 experts we have developed over the last 3 years, and this standard is nearing the publication by the end of the year. And I think this is a quite good thing for communities in the future to adopt the standard and have with this a kind of a manual and a guideline what to address on a community level to improve the living of older people, of people with dementia and also without dementia, and also have a kind of a guide or manual how, of course, you can use technologies and new techniques in this context and seamlessly integrate it into the fabric of the community. So yes, technology in the context of the COVID-19 situation, and this is actually quite interesting. We have, of course, in the last year also worked with our partners and collaborators on that. Because we think that technology can make a difference actually in the whole, we call it a kind of a, let's say, life cycle of a COVID-19 infection. So we look at what can we do with technology actually before a COVID-19 infection, so that we basically increase kind of the health and the resilience in a way that we can, so to say, minimize the risks that come along with possible infection. We also, and this is here in the middle, in the blue area, we also looked at approaches that we can use. So if you, for example, have symptoms, if an older person is diagnosed having contracted the COVID-19, so how can we use then technology, sensing technology, different also again training, rehabilitation technologies to support during this phase, and last but not least, we are also looking into the post-COVID infection phase, where you actually do a kind of a rehabilitation, of course, in the home. This should be in the home. Of course, we want not to people to go to any kind of physical therapy, or where again you have in this days certain risks and so on. So we want to see how can this rehabilitation after COVID-19 infection for older people be done and guided at home by technologies. Yeah? And we are, of course, also looking into technologies and techniques in the context of, for example, augmented reality, virtual reality, so that, of course, throughout all these phases, we can use this, so to say, to connect older people better with their peers, decrease their loneliness, and so on. These are, of course, also aspects we have to look at. So yeah, I think we have, in the context of the COVID-19 situation, learned a lot about what we can do with technology, how we can improve the resilience and the rehabilitation process in the community around medical facilities, around hospitals. And I think we gained a lot of insights and knowledge that also now, after the pandemic, where we hope that this will soon, of course, come to an end, where we can use this also after the pandemic to assist so to say, prevention and the rehabilitation process, also with regard to other challenges and conditions surrounding the health of older people in the communities. So yes, thanks. So that's so to say we're at the end of the presentation. We have here for you a list of references where I'm referencing the different projects and study outcomes that I have presented. Also naming and different projects. Where you also find there are different or more material and articles that, so to say, summarize the different developments and studies that we have done in the context of the things that I've presented. And yes, I'm happy if you would follow me on LinkedIn or on ResearchGate. So I have very actual profiles there where I'm also feeding in news and new information on a daily and weekly basis. And I think this is also this is a rich source of information. Thanks a lot, and thanks to Anne's team for inviting me to give this presentation. And I'm happy to answer, of course, any question, to engage in any discussion or anything that you would like to discuss in this context. Please feel free to contact me.
Thank you, Thomas.
Thank you.
I've got a range of questions already on the board for you. The first question is from Norm. He says, thank you, Dr. Linner, wonderful presentation. He's based in the community and really interested in the notion of personalised intelligent living. Are there any settings that you've actually provided this in community-based care? He noted on one of your slides you referred to what we would call residential aged care or nursing home care. I think you referred to it on your slide. But have you done any in particularly in community care settings?
Yes, thanks. This is a very good question. Yes, we have this. Highlighted you this REACH project. We have actually developed this for and tested this into different environments. As I said, we have tested this in care homes. Yeah, of course, we have tested this in homes. And we have also tested this in the Netherlands and in Denmark, actually in the community settings. Yeah. And also our aim was that we also tried to compare where we can actually have or make with this activation training technologies, of course, the most significant impact. And actually the outcomes indicated that community settings, like in the case of the Netherlands, we have a community, kind of a daycare center where older people, so to say, meet on a daily basis. They get also some assistance there and so on. And these community centers, we have actually deployed these devices where then some of the supporters and workers in the centers have on a daily basis trained with the visitors in the centers. And there we actually had the best outcomes using these technologies because a lot of things come into place, like, for example, peer motivation. We also saw that actually the adherence to this training showed very long-term. We had a very long-term adherence and effect of that. Yes, communities are. I think we have the best chance to implement it, but it's also difficult because, as you know, often the financing of communities and how you finance that in the communities, the deployment, it's a very difficult question. Yeah. There's maybe like in a care home is you have a investor for the care home, you have an operator, this decision maker who will invest in it. It's much easier to solve. Yes, communities, it would be beneficial to deploy it also in a larger scale, of course. Yeah. But indeed, the financing behind that is one of the is actually an issue or a challenge more severe than technology acceptance integrating that there.
So Thomas, that leads nicely into our next question from Wendy. Wendy's a great consumer advocate. So she's worked for many years in advocacy around aged care. And she notes and highlights that our Royal Commission into the quality and safety of aged care, which recently concluded and made over 100 recommendations, also includes the recommendation that assistive technology be funded in home-based care. So I think we're leading some of the nation in this. But her comment was also just complimenting you on the effort that you have made in terms of promoting co-design with consumers. She congratulates you on that, noting that that's not always the perspective that research comes from. But she also asked, you're in a unique position convening standardization work. And how important do you feel a global standardization around assistive technology is?
Yes, I think it's very, I mean, we need to do different things, of course. I think one of the aspects we need to do is that I think just local communities, municipalities, they really must dare, not only in, I think everywhere around the world, the same problem. I think municipalities, local communities, they must dare more to support the deployment of these technologies. I think in many cases, this technology is also the acceptance, how they integrate people, not only what we are doing, they are good, but we must start to bring it out there, create the awareness. I mean, it's a new, like we learn a new language or a new machine or whatever, we must learn how to use it. Yeah, the users must learn how to use it. We must dare more to bring it out there and of course see that this is safe, that this doesn't harm the people. But I think then we will see really a progress. Then we will really bring forward the adoption. Yeah. So this is the one thing. The second thing is, of course, I think the standardization is very, very important. Because of course we talk about a technology which is complex, which involves some cost, and of course the players that develop technology, they need some sort of scale. Yeah, they need some sort of national or international scale use cases where they can bring it to. Yeah, and of course standards. We know that the healthcare field is very diverse. We work in communities differently, different locations in the world, but some sort of common understanding or common standard, I think in the mid to long term, it will help us to transfer techniques, to scale up things. Of course, also bring in some certain, ensure that there is quality on an international level, that we have a similar understanding of quality. Yeah, but I personally think this for innovation, standards on a national, international level are very, very important for that.
Yes, thank you, Thomas. I agree with you totally there. And Wendy, thanks you for your response. I've got another question here from Margaret. You presented two really exciting projects, Dr. Linner. Thank you. How far are they away from commercialization?
Not so far. I mean, this is always this project. For example, the first one in the LISA project is actually, you know, we have from our champion, so to say, it was 3 projects over 10 years with an Italian industry consortium. Yeah, and they are now actually marketing and selling these furnitures as custom planning projects to care homes in the Italian area. So they are also kind of, they have founded a common spin-off where they're marketing this. So I think that's a quite step forward. Yeah, it's not yet an industrially mass-produced system, but I think that's what the industry consortium wants to go there. I think is so to say, this makes first concrete steps. Yeah, of course, as said, we would like to see it more into communities, but they focus on care homes because, of course, this business model and so on is much clearer in this context. In the REACH project, this was as I said, a very large project, 17 partners and so on. There's not the whole system commercialized, but there are 2-3 devices. For example, this training standard that you have seen, which actually a training device for people that have, so to say, risk of falls, walking difficulties, so they can do safe physical and cognitive training in that. So this is by one of the SMEs that was involved in the project. They have that now as a commercially available device on the market.
Thank you. We'll look forward to those developments. Bev asked a question or makes a comment, Dr. Linner, that integration is the key to all of this for an older person who's living in their own homes. You did make some comments earlier in your presentation around the importance of integration between different devices or approaches. Did you have any comments on that?
Yeah, of course, we have a lot of how to say heterogeneity with regard to the devices that we can use. Yeah, we often, we imagine that whether this is AI or sensors, we almost sometimes talk, this is kind of a plug and play. Yeah, the reality is technically we're quite far away from really plug and play and use different algorithms and sensors in different contexts. Yeah? So in many cases, actually, we think about a community where we want to support with technology. We kind of almost start with the integration of sensors, of data, and so on, kind of scratch. Yeah, this is kind of a pity, but I think also quite complementary to our ISO standards, where we look at the community. I think there are also the standards from the system committee AAL, from the IEC, which are our colleagues, where we collaborate closely. And I think this is really important standards with regard to the technology. We must also, in terms of the technology, see that we look more at standardization. This will make it much easier for us get the development efficiently, fast, and we also should be cheap or not, resource efficient to some extent. And I think this is a big work to bring in structure and standardization in terms of the technology as well.
Thank you. Final 2 questions, Dr. Linner. Bob compliments you on looking at the risk taking and noting that in your research. But he comments that there's also, for older people, some dignity in living and taking risks and risk taking. Any comments on that, Dr. Linner?
Yes, the comment on that is we have in different projects actually looked into that. We have in the REACH project that I've shown you actually done quite nice work, also led in that context by the DTU in Denmark. And we have, together with that, actually as part of the project, come up with a scheme where we're saying this kind of risk, of course, when you use sensors in a context, home context or whatever, it involves risk. It intrudes privacy and so on. Yeah, but actually we have also shown them with the studies, you need to see that a bit more dynamic. Yeah, for example, if someone really needs care, really needs assistance. Yeah, so also this, of course, the risk that comes by the technology or also the privacy implications. Yeah, it gets more acceptable because you are supporting, you are using that, and the people in need, they tend to take that risk. They accept also privacy intrusion to some extent. Yeah, if this can provide them advantage and support. And I think we need to see that also in a dynamic way. Yeah, of course, the more healthy you are, the more careful we should be that we, harm with risk, harm with privacy, intrusion aspects, and so on. But of course, the more people are in need, yeah, the more I think we need to have another perspective, another view on that. And yeah, I think we need dynamic schemes how to conceive of that.
Thank you, Dr. Linner. One final question. This question is from Bob. Robert. Robert is asking, congratulating you on the work that you've been doing over COVID-19. And are you in the midst of publishing this work, and will he be able to access that shortly?
Yes, we are doing different work in that context. I don't know if we are now, we have at the present no specific, how to say, publication foreseen for that, but we will surely disseminate that in some sort of way in the future.
Terrific. We look forward to keeping in touch about your future publications. That's the end of the questions that we've got time for. And as Dr. Linner has expressed, he's happy to be contacted directly, and we will provide the remaining questions as they come in. We will be posting today's webinar on the Smart Assistive Technology Collaborative. So if you haven't done so, a reminder again to register. You can also gain access to resources, exclusive events, and forums related to new assistive technologies and innovations, particularly where they relate to community-based care. If you have any further inquiries, the email address for the collaborative team, is available on your site now. Once again, I'd like to thank members of the collaborative research team, in particular, Georgie Gould, who stayed on board in different time zones to allow this recording to occur. It's also my pleasure and final task to thank our esteemed presenter, Dr. Thomas Linner. Thank you, Thomas, for making time very early in your morning to join us here in Australia and to provide an overview of your really extensive and important research. Thank you, Dr. Linner.
Thanks a lot, Anne, for inviting me. It was a pleasure. Also, thanks to the audience for the interesting questions asked, and hope to keep or stay in a dialogue with you. Thanks a lot.
Thanks very much.